Hello, hey, what's up? Caitlin Silva here, founder of The Author Mentor and 3 times best-selling author, as well as author of numerous other works, yes, some under a pen name. Over the last few years, I've been traditionally and self-published and learned all different sides of the industry. So I'm teaching what I learned works and doesn't work after making numerous investments, again, and learning all about the industry. My mission is to help other authors to succeed without making all the mistakes that I made in the very beginning and being able to reach their author goals and achieve the success they desire from the get-go, again, avoiding all of the pitfalls that I made. So, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm excited to be sharing with you the 4-day workshop on reaching your author goals over the next 90 days or less. I'm super excited that you're here, and I can't wait to be diving in and sharing with you all of this amazing content. So, over the next few days, what I'm going to cover is the biggest myth about being a writer. That's what we're covering today. Tomorrow, day 2, I'm going to share with you the real reason why you haven't reached your goals as of yet and what you can do about it. Day number 3, I'm going to share with you the biggest mistake that authors are making when they're actually publishing their book. And finally, day number 4, I'm going to be sharing with you the secret sauce to reaching your author goals starting right now. So it's steps that you can implement, it's content that's practical, and it's based on my own experience after writing and publishing numerous books over the last few years in multiple sides of the industry. Again, experimenting, investing in myself, and seeing what works and what doesn't. So today is the biggest myth about being a writer and what you can do about it. So believe it or not, one of the biggest myths in the industry is that in order to be considered a professional writer, that you have to write every day, or that if you sit down, it's just supposed to flow and you're just supposed to be a really prolific and just the writing just comes. You sit down, you have an idea, and you just write the book. A lot of times, writers look at people that are achieving the things that they want to, or the authors that are succeeding, and they get discouraged. They think, well, maybe it's not possible for me, especially when they're struggling. And maybe this has been you. Maybe you've been struggling for a really long time. Maybe you've been wanting to write a book. You feel like you have a book inside of you, but every single time that you sit down to write, you're just staring at a blank page, or you're struggling to actually get the words to flow the way you want them to. Or maybe you're even just struggling with time to write. Maybe you keep thinking, well, I'll get there someday, I'll get there eventually, but you're just not getting there. There's so many different things in life that keep coming up. And frankly, maybe you have people that are telling you, well, writing sounds great, but it's not a real job, or it's not something that you can actually rely on. Maybe you're seeing that you're getting ideas, you're getting excited, you're diving right in, and then you're getting stuck. You're not sure what to do next, so you're moving on to the next idea, and you never actually reach the finish line. And you have all these unfinished manuscripts that you're frustrated with, right? Or maybe you're writing and you're chugging along and you're thinking, ugh, my writing sucks. What if this is not even worth my time? What if I never actually achieve the goals that I desire as a writer? And so a lot of times writers are looking at this, they're getting discouraged, they're seeing their own struggles, and they're not realizing what other struggles people are dealing with. Maybe even if you're in a writing community and you've talked to some other people and you've seen some things from other people that they're struggling with, you're still seeing other writers that are achieving those dreams or that are being successful, and you're wondering, man, like, what are they doing different? What does it really take? So there's this big myth about the writing industry, about what it takes to be a writer. And I want to share with y'all that, believe it or not, it's not as complicated and difficult as sometimes it's made out to be, or that it's perceived to be by the gap between those who are struggling and want to write a book and those who actually are achieving their author goals. And I want to share with you that if I could do it, trust me, you can do it too. It just takes the right tools and the right support in being able to actually do that. So let's talk about the content for today. What I want to share with y'all is that I published my very first book several years ago when I was taking college classes. I was working full-time as a restaurant manager, and I had babies at home. So I was working 50 to 60 hours a week. I was full-time in school. I had my babies at home. So I had a very full plate. My schedule was full. It was crazy. However, there was a pivotal moment where I remember that my husband, who had his own company at the time, had a dramatic shift, and he really had to decide what he wanted to do with the rest of his life. And I told him, I said, do something that matters to you. As long as it's something that you feel light about, you feel excited about, and that you enjoy doing, I will support you 100%. As I was sharing this with my husband, I really got to thinking about my own life and about what I had been doing so far. As I mentioned, I was working in restaurant management full time. I was really thinking, this is not what I want to do with the rest of my life. And as a kid, I had always wanted to be a writer. I had seen myself becoming an author, and I knew that that was what my heart really wanted to do. And I knew I had books and stories and inspiration for readers, both on the fiction and the nonfiction side. And that's what I really wanted to do. I felt stuck and I felt trapped, and I felt like I was working in something that I really wasn't passionate about. And I couldn't wait to be able to actually do what my heart really wanted to do. I wanted to do something I was passionate about, that I believed in, and I wanted to find out if it was really possible to do that and to be able to be successful at it, right? So for me, I published my first book during that time. I decided, after getting this sucker punch to the gut motivation and realizing that I needed to go for it and stop putting it off for whatever dumb reason. Over the last several years, I had actually taken a break from writing since high school, really, and I had put my writing on the back burner. Occasionally, I had visited some manuscript, kind of looked through it, gotten overwhelmed, gotten stuck, and put it aside. So I really hadn't made any progress in the last few years of this particular manuscript. So finally, after I had that realization and I got that sucker punch to the gut of, oh my gosh, I need to write. Like, this is what my heart desires. This is what I'm passionate about. This is what I actually want to do with my life. That was when I was able to buckle down, discover the secrets that I'm sharing with you today, and actually accomplish my book. So what I'm sharing with you today is how I was able to do that despite my crazy schedule and my plate being so full, being able to actually still make that progress and get my book done. It had, like I mentioned, it had been in the works for several years, and so it wasn't completely starting from scratch. However, there was a ton of work on the book. Even though I wasn't completely starting from scratch, I was mostly starting from scratch. I had to rewrite so many different aspects. I was moving everything around. I completely changed the plot structure. It was kind of like starting from ground zero with an idea and a plot. So yes, this book was fiction. And so what I want you guys to know is that I had my children on a schedule, and I was able to work around my work schedule, and I was really intentional about the time that I was going to spend on my book. I really made the choice to make my book a priority and to spend the free time that I had working on it and pushing myself toward my dream of publishing my book, instead of wasting time on other things that were going to suck away at my attention and time, like binging on Netflix or catching up on Facebook, or even just organizing emails. I can't tell you guys how many times my inbox has been super full, but that's because I've been prioritizing and being intentional about my time instead of allocating it to things that really aren't efficient or beneficial to my time. So the reason why I'm sharing all this with you guys is that through that process, I didn't write every single day, and I never am an advocate that you have to write every single day. In fact, I believe that writing comes and goes in seasons. There are seasons of your life where you're writing and you're motivated and you're inspired and you're getting your book done, and then there are seasons where you just don't write. Maybe you're marketing, or you're working on something else, or you're just letting your life be enjoyed in other ways, like maybe on family or something like that. And during that process, maybe your brain just needs that time in order to think of new ideas, or to let ideas that you maybe haven't fully fleshed out yet to continue to develop, so that when you cut to your next writing season, you're clear and you have a good foundation and you're motivated and you can actually sit down and create that work. Right? And of course, I understand that many people have been working on a book for years and years and years and haven't made that progress, which is why we're doing this video series and this 4-day workshop, to give you the tools to be able to jumpstart your progress and be able to actually finish your book, right? Or if you've already finished your book, to be able to go on from there. We'll talk about that in video number 3. But for today, we're talking about time and how you can make time for your book and get your book done regardless of your schedule or all the crazy other things going on in your life. So there's 3 things for today that I want you to really hone in on and remember that were the tools that I used when I published my first book, despite my full-time job, babies at home, full-time school, and all of those things, right? So the first thing is that you need to be aware of your specific writing zone. Believe it or not, every person has a specific time of day when they're naturally most creative and most productive. This is a time of day when it's actually easier for you to focus in, drown out distractions, and get a lot of quality work done. We're actually going to dive into a ton more detail on this tomorrow, because this is one of the reasons why you haven't been able to reach your writing goal yet. And again, we'll talk about that in a lot more detail tomorrow. But I wanted to put that on your radar because it's so important to be aware of it as you're actually making time for your writing. The second thing I want to share with y'all for today is about prioritization. I mentioned this a little bit earlier. Instead of worrying about Netflix or social media or other things that may feel like you need to take care of them, they really can be put off till later in order for you to reach the goals that you really have inside of your heart, especially if this is something that you've always wanted to tell this book, or you know you have a book inside of you, or you just really want to write that book, right? And so I want to share with y'all that when it comes to life, right, we always prioritize the things that we feel are the most important, like eating and sleeping. I mean, of course, those are extremes. But the point is you always make time for them, because if you don't, you won't be able to continue going for very long, right? So I want to ask you, how much have you been putting your book on the back burner and just telling yourself, well, I'll get there someday, or I'll get there eventually? But really the truth is that you're not prioritizing your book. You're not taking it seriously. You're treating it like some hobby thing that you'll get to, and you may end up looking back in 10, 20 years. And I've talked to writers that have looked back after 10, 20 years filled with regret, wishing they had been able to actually get their book done a lot sooner. And the truth is that you can. And part of that is about being intentional and prioritizing your writing. So I want to talk about prioritization. So what that really looks like is, as I mentioned, being intentional. And that's the third thing that I want to share with y'all today. What that looks like is actually looking at your time and looking at your day. Even if you're not a huge person on organization and, planning things out a lot, even just having a loose idea of how you want to spend your time can be massively beneficial, especially right now while you're prioritizing your book and making this a writing season in your life. It's not going to be forever. It's just until you actually get your book done. But it's important to be intentional and to prioritize and plan that time. So if you know that you're going to be working all day, you're going to be drained at the end of the day, maybe you shouldn't necessarily plan to write today. However, if you know for a fact you're going to have a particular day off and you know you're going to have time during that day where you could allocate that time for writing, by all means do it. Put it in your calendar, right? Put a notification in your phone. Make sure that you actually intentionally plan that time and then sit down and allocate that time for your writing. That way you can make sure that not only do you make your writing a priority, but you have the time, you're creating that time, and you're putting in that time for your book. I want to share with you guys that, believe it or not, 1 hour of focused writing time can be 10 times as productive as trying to write whenever and trying to force your writing all of the time. So even if you can only put in 1 or maybe a few hours, 1 day a week for your writing over the course of a month or 3 months, of focused time, you'd be surprised how much you're able to actually accomplish and get done for your book, as opposed to writing here and there sporadically, trying to force your writing and trying to figure out ways you can actually work your writing in. Intentional, prioritized, focused time for your writing on even 1 day where you can allocate a few hours into your schedule for your writing can make a dynamic difference for your book. So if you've been struggling, feeling like you don't have time, what I want you to do for today, for your homework, is to take some time and really evaluate and be honest with yourself about where your time is going. Look at your day, look at how you're spending your time. Could you maybe get up in the morning a little bit earlier and have some quiet time where you could just focus on your book? Or maybe you could stay up a little bit later at night if you don't have to get up as early and allocate that time for your book. Whatever that looks like for you, it's important to be honest with yourself and say, you know what, maybe I have been wasting my time at this time of day, or maybe I've been spending a lot of time watching Netflix, when really you could say, you know what, I'm going to say no to that for right now, just until my book is done so I can make my writing a priority. Hope that makes sense, and you guys have gotten some ways that you can dive in and use this content today to start making some progress with your book. So if you've been struggling with time, look at those things, be honest with yourself, and start pre-planning exactly when you can allocate time for your book. It doesn't have to be as much time as you think, as long as it's focused and it's intentional and you're working on your writing during that time. So before we part ways for today, there's one last thing I want to share with you about mastering your time for your writing, especially if you've been struggling with feeling like you don't have enough time for your book. Below this video, if you look, there's a link where you can get access to the Become a Time Master system that I specifically developed to help people to be able to see where they have time opportunities in their day and be able to actually get more done without feeling stressed or overwhelmed and be able to accomplish and reach their goals. So in your case, writing. So I definitely invite you to check that out and consider getting the Become a Time Master system to really help you to master your time, see where you can allocate your time differently, and be able to actually reach your writing goals through that system. Tomorrow, we're going to dig into why you really haven't reached your goals to date. We're going to talk about what's been holding you back and how you can overcome that to really make dynamic progress with your book. We're going to revisit some of the things we talked to today in a lot more detail so that if you are hitting hurdles and you're really struggling, you can move forward with confidence and be able to actually cross that finish line in writing your book. So I can't wait to see you tomorrow and share with you all about that. Don't forget to write, publish, and inspire. See you tomorrow.